Hello, and welcome back to the Steward School Alumni Podcast. I'm your host, Harry Barron, and today we have a pretty special guest. You might even be watching us if you're looking on YouTube. Or Sydney, where are we posting this?
YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube, potentially. But we have our first remote interview all the way from Los Angeles, California. We have class of 2014, Natalie Bendheim. Thank you so much for joining us. This is really exciting. And how are you today?
I'm great, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is very cool. It's my first podcast, so this is new to me. So it's fun.
It's your first podcast, but it's not your first time being the center of attention. We were just talking before we started rolling here. You've been in a number of different productions here at the Steward School. So obviously you had an affinity or passion for acting as you went along the way. Talk me through your journey. What happened at Steward to get you to where you are in LA today?
Yeah, for sure. So it's funny. It actually started in first grade. So I was a Steward lifer, and so was my sister. And my sister,
Shout
when
out,
she
what's
was
her
in
name?
Kendall Bendheim.
Kendall Bendheim. Shout out.
Yes.
Class of what?
She was 2012.
Okay, we'll have to make sure she listens to this. Okay.
Yes, she lives in London now, so she's all the way across the pond. But yeah, but so she was in our school's production of The King and I when I was in first grade and she was in third grade, and she was in it. A lot of my friends were in it. I didn't want to audition. I didn't want anything to do with it. I didn't even want to go see it. But my parents forced me to go. And I'll never forget, I sat down in the seats in the Kramer Center and the curtains opened and I was just like blown away. I was like, oh my God, I want to do that. And I didn't even really know what that was, but I was so drawn to it. And and I kept doing obviously we had the grade plays and the lower school plays, but I finally got my first chance to act in like a school play with Oliver when I was in third grade. And I know you guys just did Oliver again recently, which is very cool. But that was my first ever real production, and I just was in love, and I just kept doing it as much as I could at Steward.
Tell us a little bit about Oliver. What do you remember from that first production? And then when was it that you hit your first, main character or main role of a play? And maybe you didn't at Steward. Maybe you're still searching for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Oliver was amazing. I'll never forget. I was like an orphan child, and then I was also like one of the town's children. And it was just so fun because it was one of those all school productions. So it was kids, from lower school, middle school, upper school. So it was really cool to have like this big community. One of my very good friends, who is also a lifer with me, Bryce Discerny, he played Oliver, and it was just very fun because a lot of kids in our class were in it. And I just remember like that sense of community that you have in a play was so cool. And being on stage and the lights and like tech week and everything was just like magical. And I think so in terms of like my first ever lead role, it wasn't a lead, but when I was in sixth grade, like you can start auditioning when you're in sixth grade, you can start auditioning for, the main productions. And we did Snoopy. And it was a very small cast. It's about 6 or 7 people.
Oh, wow.
And I auditioned and I was like, who knows what's going to happen? I don't, I'm a sixth grader. Like, no way I'm going to get in. But I got cast as Woodstock, which was so fun. Little Birdie Woodstock. It was just really cool. It was kind of the first time where I felt like, okay, like maybe I can actually like do this. Maybe I do have like some sort of talent. And then I think like my first ever like lead role was probably, I think I was either 9th or 10th grade. And we did our first ever Shakespeare production, and we did a Comedy of Errors. And there are only 2 female roles really in that show. And I auditioned for both of them. And then at the end of the audition, we actually brought in like an outside director for that one. It was something new that we did, but at the end of the audition, he was like, does anyone want to read for anything? He was like, a guy can read for a girl part, a girl can read for a guy part. Cause it's Shakespeare, you can gender bend.
Yeah.
And I watched all these guys like audition for this really funny character named Romeo. And I was like, you know what? I just got he really funny monologue. I was like, you know what? I just want to try it. Like, let's just see. And I went up there and I just, winged it and did my best. And I ended up getting cast as their twins. So there's Dromio of Ephesus and Dromio of, I forget the name of the other Dromio character. But I got cast as a twin with another guy, and I got to dress up I had like a beard and like a beard t-shirt. It was very fun. And that was kind of my first.
I appreciate a good beard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was. I had a goatee. It was very fun. But that was kind of like the first big thing I think I did.
It's funny. We like to get into the podcast here. What made Steward special for you? I mean, we asked that a whole lot, but I mean, we'll dig right in. I was one of my first major productions was Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Yes.
And like you were saying, I played multiple roles. So I played a camel. I held like a cardboard camel. I was Jacob, which was Joseph's father, and I had 4 or 5 wives in the play. Caitlin, my current wife, was actually a wife of mine in the play. So that ended up being a little, cool foreshadowing. And then I was the Pharaoh, the Elvis Pharaoh, where I got to. But what was unique about that play was I was the understudy to Elvis. So unfortunately, the main Elvis got sick a couple weeks before the play. I don't remember exactly what happened, but I was asked to, as a 12-year-old, I was asked to kind of step up and take over. But you mentioned something a couple times, that sense of community. Do you think that was Steward? Do you think it was the theatrical community within Steward? Do you think it was both? And as you've kind of expanded and become an adult and gone to college, do you see what Steward did for you? And does it still resonate? Talk me through that.
Yeah, for sure. I think with theater, it is just a sense of community, but the theater community of Steward was really beautiful. I think that, so when I got older, I ended up being like the only person in my class who was really doing theater. So I was like the only person in my grade who was doing it. So I had a lot of people older than me and a lot of people younger than me, but I never really felt like I was like alone. Like, I think I was embraced by, everyone, which was really cool. And, I think I got very, very fortunate with the theater community at Steward, because to this day, the Kramer Center is one of the nicest theaters I've ever acted in. That I don't think I didn't realize it when I acted there, and I want to tell the kids who are acting there now, that theater is so nice. Like it almost rivals the nice theater at USC where I went. It is so wonderful, and to be able to grow up acting on that stage, I think is something just incredibly special. And not only that, but then I had such amazing mentors and teachers at Steward, and Mr. Smith and the other theater teacher when I was there, Miss Maring, and they really just fostered my love of the craft. And encouraged me, and they cast me, and they were so great in classes. And then obviously when I was auditioning for college, Mr. Smith helped me with my monologues and everything. And I think they're both a huge reason as to where I am right now.
So for those Steward folks that might be listening, maybe a current senior or junior who might be looking to go into acting or into your field, you mentioned just now Mr. Smith helped you with preparation to applying for USC and other colleges. Talk us through that. My application process for Alabama was a 1-page front and back, and it was an essay box like that big. Now, it's changed, and I got in, so thank you, Alabama, for letting me in. But what did that process look like? Give us a peek behind the curtain so kids who are about to go through that can get a sense of what they might be looking at.
Yeah, so theater school's interesting. You have to go travel for auditions. So there was a good couple of months. So you do the regular general application, but then you also have to do monologues. Usually you have to do about 1 comedic, 1 dramatic. Every school is different. Every school has their own requirements, but most of them are contemporary monologues, 1 comedic, 1 dramatic. And I had to travel. I'm trying to think. I went to New York, and I think I did and then I can't remember if I came out to California, because also the schools travel. So the schools they'll have a large collection of schools for 1 weekend that you can audition kind of for all of them. And I think I did that. So I definitely, I know one weekend I went up to New York. I auditioned for Tish. I auditioned, I think I did my USC audition actually in New York. I auditioned for a couple of other schools in New York, Pace, and a couple of other ones. And then I sent in some tape auditions, which honestly these days is probably what most kids will do, because tape
Oh,
auditions are becoming the norm in the industry. So
well,
that
that
was
takes the
very,
personality and like, doesn't that take a little bit of the, uh, uh, I'm blanking on the word here, but there's when you're in a room with somebody and it's you and
yes.
them, there's an energy that you can feel. And if you're auditioning, don't you want to feel that energy from that person?
Yes, you absolutely do. It's a big debate in the industry right now. They're called self tapes, is what we call them, and it's a lot of days when you're auditioning nowadays. You're auditioning in your own home. You're taping yourself. You have to get your own reader. You have to edit it yourself. It's a whole thing. For colleges, I think it's a little bit better because all the colleges I had a audition process and then I had an interview process. So I do think they will probably get to meet you at some point. But yeah, I did have to do a couple of tapes, especially for like the California schools that I couldn't get to audition for. But yeah, it's a self tapes are very interesting. It's a whole other skill that you have to learn these days that you didn't. Auditioning was always a skill, but self taping is a whole other skill on top of auditioning as well.
I mean,
So
I'm
it's
sure it's not as easy as just looking into a camera and talking. If it was, I could get into a theater school anywhere
yes,
because
yeah,
I could just
it's
sit and talk into a screen. I mean, that would not be hard.
mhm.
But it's the detail, the effort, everything that you put behind your story. I mean, I guess the folks that are on the other end of the camera, they're deciding whether or not you're going to be a good fit based on what, 30 seconds. How much time do you put in these little shorts?
Yeah, so for college auditions, I think it's like you usually do like a 1 to 2 minute monologue. I think it's about one, maybe like one and a half. It can't be too long. It can't be,
It's very challenging.
it is very challenging, and that's why monologue choice is so important. It's always, and monologues, like you do that a lot for theatrical auditions, things like that. Monologue choice is incredibly important. It's something I learned the hard way. I was very fortunate. Mr. Smith helped me pick my monologues for college because when I got in college and I started picking monologues for myself, I was not very good at it. I was always picking the wrong monologue, wrong age range, wrong character type, things like that.
Ah,
Yeah.
well, yeah. Okay, so it must be nice to have a good coach because I would probably, uh, I'd probably cast myself in a certain, position
Mhm.
over and over. But if you have a good coach that knows your true abilities, they're going to help you stretch. Okay, you've got a couple of things that you're working on personally here. I want to dig into that in a second, and then we've got some special guests that are going to be joining us here in a little bit. Couple students from Steward who might be getting into acting and want to ask you a couple questions. But before we do those things, um, tell us if you have a fun, celebrity story or an interaction or a work story about, somebody who our listeners might know. Maybe it was a good interaction. Maybe it was, we hear actors. Some are like really down to earth and just like normal people, and some are very odd. Nicolas Cage is the guy that comes to mind. Do you know the stories about Nick Cage? He's already bought his crypt in New Orleans. I've seen it. It's crazy. And it's
Really,
big
that's
too. It's a
crazy.
big, huge pyramid. And that's where he's going to be buried. Anyways, so stuff like that I think can be a little
Mhm.
odd. But tell us the story.
Yeah, so probably my favorite story happened about a year ago now. So as I was saying, I do self tapes, but one of the things you kind of do is you just do self tapes kind of for yourself, just to practice, just to do fun things. And there's this thing called self tape May that a lot of actors do, and so it's where you just do a bunch of self tapes in May. And so last year, surprise.
Yeah,
But last year I decided that Breaking Bad is one of my favorite shows of all time. And Jesse
number
Pinkman's one of my
two on my
number
list
2.
of
Okay,
all-time
yeah.
greatest series. And I will share my number one if you want.
Yes, please.
The Sopranos is number one. Breaking Bad is never good. And there have been days where I flip flop back and forth. I don't know if you've seen The Sopranos. You're a bit younger than me.
I need to see The Sopranos. It's been on my list for so long. I know I need to see
Young
it.
Natalie, actress, young producer, director in the making. I'll tell you just the journey of the character, right, of James Gandolfini's character of Tony Soprano from episode 1 until the way it ends. I was in college and had graduated, when the series was out. I was a freshman or maybe senior in high school when it started. And then, a couple years after I graduated college. And every episode, I was on the edge of my seat. Every episode, very similar to Breaking Bad. That's why I kind of interchanged them, for being honest. Okay, sorry, I interrupted, but I got excited when you threw.
No, you're okay. So, The Sopranos is on my list. So, so yes, so Breaking Bad's one of my favorite shows of all time. Jesse Pinkman is probably my favorite character of all time, and I love Aaron Paul, and I think he's amazing. So I decided that I was going to do a scene from Breaking Bad as Jesse Pinkman. And I taped it just for fun with my acting coach, and I posted it on Instagram. And I decided just for fun I was going to try to tag Aaron Paul.
Yeah.
Just why not? He's probably never going to see it, but let's do it anyway. Well, he saw it, and he actually sent me a message on Instagram and was like, beautiful scene. He was like, just remember, it's not, the amount of times you get knocked down, it's the amount of times you get back up. And it was really amazing. And what was crazy about it, though, was about a week later, I was working at this restaurant at the time, and he actually happened to be a regular at the restaurant. Crazy. And he was there eating lunch, and you're not supposed to talk to celebrities. You're supposed to be cool, whatever. But because cool, we'd had this kind of interaction, I just went up to him and I was like, hi, I was like, I don't want to bother you. I just wanted to say, I did a scene of yours posted on Instagram. You saw it and sent me a message, and I just wanted to say thank you so much. That was so kind of you. And he was like, oh my God, that was you? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, can I give you a hug? And I was like, yeah, absolutely.
Wait a minute, let me think about that.
Yeah.
Yes, we met.
Yeah. And he was so nice. And we ended up having a 5-minute conversation because I was on break at work, so I couldn't talk very long. But he was so kind. And he was just like, I watched some of your other stuff. He was like, you're really good. You're doing exactly what you need to be doing. And just kind of gave me some advice. And we just had a nice talk about the industry. And every time he came in, from then on, he would just ask me how I was doing, ask me about my career, whatever I was doing. And he was just the nicest guy. And it was just such a cool interaction to have with someone that I admire, an actor that I just think is amazing. So,
well, he went from, I did not know him before Breaking Bad, so I don't want to say he went from obscurity to being a superstar in the TV world, but it took a project like that jolted him into that superstar status. I know that you have a pilot that's getting some real traction right now. At a high level, what's the story and what pulled you toward this idea?
Yeah, so it's about a young woman in about her mid-20s, and it's called The Struggler, and it's about a young woman in her mid-20s. She's struggling with kind of her relationships, her career, her identity, and she ends up kind of going on this journey with her long-term partner, kind of to find out who they are and how they can live their most authentic lives and be their most authentic selves. And the idea came to me years ago. I was always trying to write something, and I could never land on something. I had all these ideas about spy pilots and something cool, and I wanted to do something cool and subversive and something that's never been done before. But I was just never the right person to write these stories, And finally, I had this idea rolling around in my head, what if I wrote something that's kind of based on my own life? What if, I'm not the most interesting person in the world, but I do think I have maybe an interesting perspective, and, I've had some fun. I have some funny stories, so I was like, what if I took, some of my own personal life experience and turned it into a show, and it was supposed to be a web series. I was supposed to be something that I could easily make myself, because I just wasn't feeling like I was getting, cast enough, and I wasn't getting the traction I wanted to as an actor. But I was in a writing class when I started writing the web series, and everyone in the class was like, "This is great. This sounds like it should be on TV already." So I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll just write a pilot, because that makes sense when you're trying to make something yourself. And so I wrote the pilot, and yeah, it was something I was really proud of. The first draft, I kind of sent it to some people I knew in the industry, some like writer directors, a couple of producers, and I talked with them. They gave me some feedback. People seemed to really like it, but it needed some work. So I went back, I did another rewrite of it, kind of changed it a little bit, stayed the same story, but changed kind of the tone a little bit, and the structure. And then with that version, I decided that I was going to submit it to a bunch of screenwriting competitions, just to see, because that was the only thing I could think to do with it at the time. And so the first big one I got into actually was years ago. So I wrote this pilot back in like 2023. This is when it was finished.
Okay.
And so the first big one I got into was the Austin Film Festival, which is a film festival and screenwriting competition. And it is actually one of the premier screenwriting competitions in the country. And I submitted to that on a whim. I was like, there's no way. There are people who have been writing for years that have never gotten into Austin. I was like, there's just absolutely no way. But like, it's my reach, just like USC was my reach school. Yeah. This is my reach, like, this is my reach film festival. And I got in, and I was shocked. And that was amazing, just like kind of very validating. And then I was able to go to the Austin Film Festival. And the cool thing about the Austin Film Festival is it's also a screenwriting like conference. So it's a whole weekend of like panels and everything with like huge writers. Like I went to a panel with the writer of Severance, and I met the writer of one of my
Buku awards recently.
Exactly. Yeah. And he was so cool. And like, I met one of my favorite writers in one of my favorite movies, Little Miss Sunshine, and just like
sure. Yeah.
So many cool people. It's just like a bunch of really cool writers, just like, hanging out and talking about their love of the craft. And I didn't really think I could be a writer until I went there, and we started, started talking to people, and people were like, well, if you're here, you're a writer. And when I was there, I figured out that the category that I had submitted in, the comedy teleplay category, was the most competitive that year. And so that was also just like a very big boost. And then I didn't touch my pilot for a couple of years because the strikes happened. And that was really big for our industry, and some stuff in my personal life happened. And then last year, there's a screenwriting competition that I had always wanted to enter called the Outstanding Screenplays Competition, pilot competition. And again, like on a whim, I was just like, yeah, sure, why not? Let's see. And I ended up being a finalist in that competition, 1 out of 10. Which was
1 out of 10 that got into the competition.
Yes,
how many who probably applied.
Yeah,
hundreds.
Exactly. Yeah, 1 out of 10 of finalists, which was crazy. And because of that, I kind of got on their radar and got on their Instagram. And my script was actually read by a Emmy Award-winning screenwriter from Succession, and she loved it. She wrote me, they write you like feedback and everything. And her feedback was just so kind. And she was like, I hope that I can see this on television someday soon. And I was like, me too.
So tell us what's next for the project. We have our special guests are waiting outside. So
yes,
and
amazing.
They're in school. So we're going to get them in here.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is next for your project? And we can always follow back up.
Yeah, absolutely. So the hope, I'm kind of trying to figure out exactly what I want to do with it right now. It's either in between crowdfunding and making it myself, or trying to sell it to a studio. Ideally, I'd like to sell it to a streamer and, have that be the thing. I want to star in it. I wrote it for myself. So that's the hope, is that I can do that somehow, but I think I'm more likely to do that if I make it myself. So, and the industry's in a really weird place right now. So it's harder to get things sold, especially from a complete unknown. So, I'm still figuring out the right way to do it.
I was reading an article yesterday about Hollywood and how it has changed and how films, it was about how many people have watched things like the Marvel films. Like it's $1 billion franchise, but the film that won Best Picture this year made like 50 million bucks, and it was, like it was barely viewed by 5 million people. But
Yep.
these Marvel films are getting watched and viewed by everybody, and that's like what the movie theaters are wanting to make today, is just money, money, money. And now you're getting these indie films and smaller projects that are still very well done and beautifully made, but they're not getting the type of exposure. So hopefully that will start to change. Okay, we're gonna pause for like 2 seconds.
Please.
I want to get our friends in here.
Yes, bring them in.
We'll do some quick introductions. And both of these young ladies were recently in Steward's production of Shrek, which I viewed, I watched, I saw. I loved it. It was amazing. You guys did fantastic.
Awesome.
Fairies.
Thank you.
The two best fairies in the whole production.
Love it.
Exactly. Okay, so Natalie, thank you so much for joining us. Ladies, Natalie is a 2014 graduate of Steward and now is a enormous success in LA. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. But why don't you two introduce yourselves, and I think we're going to put this, depending on how this part of the act goes, I think we're going to put this on YouTube. So let's pull this thing out of the way. Sorry, whose is that? Is that yours?
Yeah, it just has the questions.
Oh. Okay.
No.
Can you guys see like that?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent. So before we dig in, let's just introduce ourselves. We'll start right here.
I'm Claire Stuckey. I'm a junior, so class of 2027. As he said, I was in our most recent production of Shrek. I was actually in all 3 of our shows this year. But yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you and hear a little bit more about your experience.
Cool. Nice to meet you.
You too.
Hi.
Here, speak into the mic.
Yes.
You're good. You can.
Hi, my name is Emory Burns. I'm also a junior with Claire, so class of 2027. I was also in Shrek, and I also did all 3 shows, but I've been doing theater since I was 4 years old, and I hope to continue that into college and into the professional world.
Amazing. Nice
I'm
to
not
meet
gonna lie,
you all.
Natalie. We weren't sure if either one of them like wanted to pursue acting long term, but I think we've just heard. I mean, they've both been doing this for a long time, and
Yeah.
you guys missed the story. I was in many productions here at Steward in my day, so we're all kind of part of the family here. Okay, so now
I love that.
I'm going to turn this part of the interview over to these two, and
Great.
we'll talk for the next probably 15, 20 minutes, however long you guys go and however much time you have. I think you have to be back in class at what time? 2? They don't even know. It's okay.
This block ends at 2:15.
Okay, there you go.
Amazing. I have all the time in the world. So, but I know you guys got to get back to class. So hit me. Tell me what you got.
Please, take it away.
I think we wanted to start by just asking you what first sparked your interest in acting and in producing.
Yeah. So I was telling Harry that when I was at Steward, I saw my first show there, and that just really sparked like something in me that I really wanted to do that. And so I started in 3rd grade with my first production of Oliver, which I know that you guys did recently. Yeah. So I was an Oliver. I was an orphan child and a Towns child in 3rd grade, and I just kept going from there. And then obviously went to school for it, went to USC, and kept with it. And
Southern California, not
Southern California, not I
Or
forget.
East
I
Coasters
forget.
might get- yeah, exactly.
Yes, yeah. So University of Southern California. And yeah, I mean, acting has been something that I've loved forever. And then in terms of producing, when I was, I think like 16, maybe, I read a biography of Marilyn Monroe, and it was talking about, how back in the day they had the studio system and you could only sign to one studio. And, she was signed to a studio, but they only wanted her to do these films, where she was like, Marilyn Monroe and like the sexy girl. And she didn't want to do those for the rest of her life. So she started her own production company and produced her own movies so she could be in the movies that she wanted to be in. And I just thought that that was the coolest thing in the world. What a girl boss. And so I was like, okay, I think that's something I would like to do as well. And then I just kind of stumbled into producing. I I eventually opened a production company, but which I don't have anymore. But I produced for a couple of years, a couple of different things, and I have a writer director friend who cast me as an actor first, and then had me produce his next couple of short films. So it's kind of just been same thing with writing. I just kind of stumbled into it because I wanted to start making my own stuff.
I lied. I'm going to ask a question because they're juniors, and you said something just now, and I want to make sure they heard it. You failed at something. You started a production company and you failed.
Yes, please fail. Like it's like one of my biggest pieces of advice. Don't be afraid to fail. I have failed in so many things. But I think my failures are also one of the reasons that I am where I am. Like, I wouldn't have written my pilot if I didn't fail in terms of like where I wanted to be in acting at that point. So it's really important to try things and fail.
I love that. I think failure is also like a really important part of theater, being able to fail at something, whether it be getting cast or, making a mistake on stage and being able to come back from it is so important. And so it's wonderful that failure is something that you've encountered. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
both in like an industry where perfection is so like valued, just that is a really important thing to keep in mind.
Yes. And not to like name drop, but I have had conversations with, I was telling Harry with Aaron Paul and Bryan Cranston, both individually for different reasons. And both of theirs, like two of their biggest advice, both of their advice to me was like, go for it. And if you fail, just get back up and do it again. But at least you tried. Like, at least you went for it with everything that you had. And, that's all you can do.
Well, I just recently saw an interview with George Clooney, and in the beginning of his career, he was 1 out of 100 auditions. He got 1 out of 100 of his auditions. I think that's pretty crazy when you think about, like, he is, creates his own roles now. But back in the day, he was like, 99 times I didn't get what I wanted. Sorry, I'm going to keep jumping in. That's what I do.
No worries.
All right. So another question would be like, so what is a typical day and like, what does it look like for you as being like an actor and a producer in Hollywood?
Yeah. So the fun thing about being an actor is you don't get to do it that often. You have your side jobs and your side gigs. But I would say a typical day for me right now is, wake up, do the whole routine, work out, eat breakfast, whatever. Then throughout the day, you have like casting websites that you sign up for. I do what's called self-submitting. So you get emails from these casting websites for roles that are in your age range and in your role type, and you can go and submit for them. So throughout the day, I'll be self-submitting for different roles, for different projects. If I have an audition either that day or in one of the days coming up, I will prep for that. Right now, I'm working a temporary job at Universal Studios in Hollywood at their theme park. So that's very fun. So that's like on the weekends. So on those days, I will do like a whole voice and body warm up to get ready for that, because it's a whole long night thing, and it's kind of theater-ish. So I'll do that. And then I'll spend some time thinking about or working on scripts that I'm currently trying to work on, and trying to devise a strategy of how I'm going to either write them or make them or things like that. And then it's just a lot of a lot of gig work. I have friends who have like all different types of jobs. So some of them have sales jobs that they do every day. I work, have worked as a server for 10 years now, and I do that when I'm not doing other gigs. I work murder mystery parties, which is very fun. So it's every day's a new adventure. But those are just kind of the general things.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Another thing we were wondering about is, what do you think some of the like biggest, most significant misconceptions are that people have about working in the entertainment industry?
That's a great question. That it's easy money. That you're going to get rich doing it. That it's easy in general. you know, like when I was at school at USC, you know, they brought in a lot of professional actors to come and talk to us, and every single one would tell us, like, if you have a plan B, do that. And I was always like so frustrated because I was like, why are they trying to do us from our dreams? Like, that's not cool. But it wasn't until I got out here and like I got out of school, was like actually being a working actor, that I understood. This industry is hard. Like, it's amazingly rewarding when you get to do it, but like, I'm lucky if I get to be on set like a couple times a year. You know, it's especially like right now the industry is in a really difficult place, but it's not that, you know, like they don't want you to pursue your dreams. It's just that if you don't need this to like breathe, it can crush you, if you don't. And I always tell people, like, you have to have a borderline delusional self-belief in yourself. Like, you have to really, 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 truly believe beyond any shadow of a doubt that you are one day going to make it. And it is absolutely a marathon, not a sprint. And that was another thing that Aaron Paul told me. He was like, his mentor told him, he was like, it's not the most talented. It's not the people, you know, with the most talent or the most connections or things like that. All the connections really do help. It is the people who stick with it that make it. It's kind of outlast, is the big thing. So, you know, this is such a fun job when you get to do it, but you're not getting to do it most of the time. You know, auditioning is like different. You get to audition a lot, but you know, I think you just have to, like I said, have that delusional self-belief, and this has to be your life. Like,
so do you have that delusional self-belief? Is that, I mean, you're out there, you're doing it. And like, how long have you had that self-belief that you knew you were just going to do something?
Yeah, I do have the delusional self-belief. I'm not really where I thought I was going to be at this point in my career, where I would like to be, but I do fully believe one day that I will be where I want to be and to do the things I want to do. I have had this delusional self-belief for quite some time, since high school. I told my parents I wanted to be an actor at 16. I was very, very fortunate that they were incredibly supportive, and I have been trying to pursue it professionally since then. So that's 15 almost years in this industry. And it's full of ups and downs, and craziness. But I have always had that crazy belief that no matter what people have told me, I mean, I've had people tell me I'm great. I've had people tell me I'm terrible. I've had people tell me I'm going to make it. I've had people tell me I'm not. Like, you'll get and like, that's the other thing. You'll get so many no's. You'll get way more no's than you get yeses. Like, from every audition. And, you know, like, when you audition, you put it out into the ether, and, you know, 9 times out of 10, you're hearing nothing back. But as long as you feel like you did a good job, it's all you can do. And, you know, they always say, book the room, not the role. It means, you know, if you do your best, you're, you know, the casting director, they will remember you. I get pulled in for the same casting offices all the time. You know, like, if you do a good job and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, even if you don't book it, if you're on their radar, that's what matters.
Just takes one break. That's
exactly.
it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yours is coming. We know it.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. So another question, I mean, kind of basic, like working off of that would be,
Mhm.
how do you handle like rejection, or in like those situations, how are you able to like come back from that when things get kind of sad like that?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely something that I've struggled with, and like, I think like everybody in this industry, not just actors, you know, like writers, everybody in the industry, because it's so subjective, and like, you know, it's not always if you're the best. It's sometimes who you know, and it's sometimes luck, and, you know, whatever. But I think the way I've dealt with it, you know, like, because there's so many times where I'm like, am I even good? Like, am I even like, what am I even supposed to be doing this? Am I ever going to make it? But again, like, that delusional self-belief. But I think it's also just like remembering the times that I am on set, and whenever I get on stage, it reminds me how worth it is, because I do love this with everything that I am. And so I try to practice gratitude a lot, being grateful just for the opportunities, being grateful for the opportunities I've had and just the auditions that I get. And like, just like go outside and touch grass. Like, just remember that, like, there is more to life than this career. And like, even though like this is my life and this is what I've built my life around and what I want to do with my life, like, you know, there is other things out there. And a number of professional actors have said one of the most important things you can do as an actor is live, because acting is all about portraying a real person or real life experience. And so I think sometimes, like, when it gets really, really hard, it's important to just go live life, go do something fun, go do a new experience or something like that, to kind of reinvigorate that love of life. Because I think if you love life, it really shows in your acting.
How would you say are some of the ways that you go about doing that? Like, when you feel like you need to just like take a break, like what do you tend to go to do?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very fortunate. I live in a beautiful city with lots of really cool things to do. I currently live like very close to Griffith Park, which is a really big park here in LA, and I go hiking there a lot. I'll just go out, like I'll just go somewhere pretty, read a book. Like getting out in nature is a huge one for me. I really, I love nature. And then like also just like, I'm so lucky to have a really great support system, have really great friends. So like just like going and hanging out with them and, going to a new restaurant, trying some new food, just like doing something, whatever it is that makes you happy, like, or in like, whatever your hobbies are, like dive into those. Like, like I used to play guitar. I've fallen out of it. I'm trying to relearn it, and like I want to take dance classes and like things like that, just like try to find other things that feed you and that fill your well, because especially your creative well, because it's the hard thing about doing this for a living is that it does sometimes become about the money, and it does sometimes come about like, can I do this? Like, can I do this job financially and things like that? So you're not always doing and a lot of the stuff that makes money isn't like the stuff that you want to be doing creatively. So find other things that fill that creative well inside you, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I just had a question. So Claire Stuckey is one of our presidents of the Women's Empowerment Club here at Steward.
Yes, she is.
Ma'am. And I
Love it.
wanted to ask just about like how like some of the challenges that you face, like being a woman in a very like career that tends to be a lot more male dominated, and like how you've been able to push through those challenges.
Yeah, well, I love that. Congratulations. Love female empowerment. I think like, yeah, it's the thing that sucks about this industry is that, yeah, there's a lot of, it is a male dominated industry, and there's a lot of sexism and things like that. But I think it's also just like, as an actor, you are getting judged a lot on your looks. You're getting judged, and like you're getting judged a lot on things that you really can't control. Like you could get a job because you look like you could not get a job because you look like the casting director's ex-girlfriend. Like you could get a job because you're, because the casting director thinks you're really pretty. Like, it's things like that. And I think the way you push through that is just one of the things that I have felt most empowered is just like make your own stuff. Like take that power back. Don't wait for someone to give you an opportunity, make your own. And I think that that's something that it took me a while to learn. I think when I got out of college, I was waiting to get cast and like waiting for someone to give me the opportunity. And I would, I'd go to interviews with agents and, and like to casting directors. And sometimes like they would just like, they just give you a bad vibe. And like, it was not so much about my talent as other things. And I realized that if I wait on these, mostly men, to give me the opportunities, they might never come. So I decided to just start trying to make them myself, and trying to build a community around me that supports me and supports women, and supports what, trying to make Hollywood a little bit more like inclusive and diverse place that, and like, filled with more original stories and things like that. That's something that is very important to me. So, trying to just realize that like the system, just like a lot of systems, are broken. And it's kind of up to you to decide how you want to deal with that. And there's a lot of different ways to do it, but I have found that making your own stuff and being your own boss is really empowering. Yes.
I have a question.
Please.
Since I'm only the only guy in the room, I'm going to raise my hand. And because I have two daughters, one that goes to Steward. I think you guys know that. Where do you have male mentors and male allies? And how over your career have you found them? Because like you're saying, sometimes people are in it for the wrong reasons. So how do you identify somebody who is in it for the right reasons?
For sure. Well, I think, one of my first ever mentors is male, Mr. Smith. He was, one of my biggest mentors. And he was, he was just incredibly encouraging. You guys know Mr. Smith, and we love Mr. Smith. He's fantastic. Someone who just like really encourages you and really, like I never felt like he treated me differently because I was a woman. It just it never even crossed my mind. And I think it's finding people like that. It's finding, I'm trying to think like right now. I actually like my acting coach is a man, and he's great. And again, he's like, he's someone that like, is so encouraging and so empowering. And, he tells you, what you're good at. And he tells you, what, he's constantly like, you just need your big break. You've got it. You've got it, girl. You have everything. And like, it's finding people who like don't tear you down. People who, I think like a lot of times, like, you're men who don't mansplain, it's like someone who sees me, who I feel sees me as an equal. One of my biggest, creative partners is a writer director, and again, he's a man. He cast me in like one of my first lead roles in a film, and now has brought me on as a producer and a star in his next two projects. And again, like I feel like my voice is heard. I feel like I am valued, and it's just finding, and then like obviously like just finding people who are clearly allies, like people who like, you can, people like who speak with action and not just words. Because I think people can say that they're allies, and they believe in they're feminists and all these things, but like, people's actions will always speak louder than their words. And like my writer director friend, has, been like, I want to bring more females onto this project, and like, has like actively like tried to do that, and has actively like, sought my advice for things like that. And so yeah, I think it's you can kind of suss it out, and sometimes you'll be wrong. There are people who I thought like were cool and weren't, and that sucks, but you kind of learn to navigate it. But I think if you pay attention to how people act, that's a really good indicator.
That's male or female. They'll be
yes,
good
yes.
and bad. But something that you said, being a little bit older than the other folks in this room, that it's the trust factor.
Yeah,
that's a big piece. Like, and the biggest takeaway from what you just said was actions speak louder than words. Mm-hmm. So that's where trust comes from. I think the older I've gotten, I realize. And actually, Steward is a really good example of that. When I came back to participate as an alumni on the alumni board, I was pushing a lot of different, agenda items, but wasn't really getting behind them. Only when I got behind them, like doing things like a podcast, did we put action behind our words. That's when things really started to change. So I just heard that, and I thought, we're talking about a little bit heavier of a topic when you're talking about a male-dominated industry and females trying to break through. And, as somebody who is sensitive to that, I don't just talk the talk, walk the walk. And if you find somebody who does that, then you've got a good one. Okay, we got more time. Or do you guys have any more questions for Natalie? If you got a couple more?
We have a couple
Okay,
more,
cool.
yeah.
Let's do it.
So another question that we kind of thought about would be like going back to, your Steward days. What advice would you give your high school self?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think don't feel like you have to have it all figured out. It's kind of like going back to like don't be afraid to fail. I think like especially you guys are juniors, right? Like, yeah, I think you're at the time in your life where people are like, okay, you have to start thinking about college, and then when you start thinking about college, you have to think about what you're gonna major in, and like all this stuff, and it feels like a lot of pressure to trying to figure out things immediately. But don't be afraid to not. I think like, the most important thing I think you can do is just try things. I wish that when I was your age, I just felt like I had to have everything figured out, and I felt like time was going by so fast. And people would always tell me I'm so young, I'm so young, and like I'd be like, okay, sure. But you really are so young, and not like in a patronizing way, like you're so young, but like you have so much time. Like, and you have like your whole 20s. Like the things I've done from the time I was in creation to now is crazy. And I'm still so young. Like, I still have so much time. And so like I think that like if you guys go in one direction and you realize that that's not the right direction, you can absolutely change it. Like, don't be afraid to pivot. I think the one thing that I would say is I've seen a lot of people in my life who are unhappy. And I think a lot of that goes back to like, you know, career choice. And I would say if you have a dream, if you have something you really love, go for it and go for it now. You can always change. Like I said, you can always pivot. If it doesn't work out. If you fail, that's totally fine. But at least you can tell yourself that you did it. I've seen a lot of people in my life who I think wish that they had done that and who didn't. And even if it's like, it doesn't even have to be acting. If it's just something that you love, if you like to do that. There are so many jobs in the world that you can do that are, adjacent to things that you love. But yeah, don't be afraid of trying something new. And even if you get to college and you like think you know what you want your major to be, and then like you get there and you're actually like, like don't be afraid to take like a class that's like on the complete opposite side, because you might figure out that you love it. But try a bunch of different things. I'm in this like in this troupe right now, this theater troupe, and like our director always says fail forward. So like it doesn't matter if you fail, because like you're trying something, and even if you do fail, it's going to lead you to the next thing. So just follow your heart. I know that sounds dumb, but like just don't be afraid, and like don't let people tell you that you can't. Kind of goes to that like delusional self-belief. Like I think that a lot of people are going to tell you have to do the safe thing. A lot of people are going to tell you have to do this and that, but at the end of the day, it's your life. Live it the way you want to live it.
I love that.
Yeah. I think one of the last questions that we had was, how do you feel like your experience at Steward and your time at Steward has shaped who you are today and how you go about different experiences?
Yeah, I think that, I was so fortunate, that theater program at Steward was so great for me. And I can't remember if I said it when you guys were here, but I said it to Harry. The Kramer Center is the nicest theater I have ever acted in, hands down. It is so, so nice. And getting to grow up in that theater and around that community really helped me grow as a person. It really allowed me to kind of explore different parts of myself, and like doing plays, like going to play practice after school, like in rehearsal, like it was always just like such an escape from everything, and it was just so amazing to be able to do that. And then like I was at Steward from K through 12. I was a lifer, and like I made some really amazing friends in that time. And one of my best friends from Steward I met in kindergarten, and we still, she's still my best friend. She lives in Atlanta now, but like, we're still best friends. And, like she's, been a huge support system and things for me. I'm incredibly lucky, that I have her and that I have, some of the people that I met at Steward and the experiences, especially in like the theater department, but like just in general that I had, in high school and things like that. I had some amazing teachers that I still talk to, and like, I think that's something that's special about Steward is just like, how it is small, but because of that, like, there is that sense of community. And I still have, people from Steward just like sometimes send me like, supportive messages. Like I'll never forget like my first ever big commercial I got, showed, I didn't know this at the time, but it showed in front of the final Star Wars movie in movie theaters. And I got a message from one of my Steward classmates one day, and she was like, "Oh my God, like I was at Cinemark with my family the other night, and your commercial came on in front of Star Wars." And I was like, and she's like, "Congratulations." I was like, "I had no idea. Thank you so much for telling me that." So I got to tell my dad, and my dad got to see it. So, that's just, it's fun that I can keep, I just went to like another friend from Steward just went to her wedding, and we had like a little mini Steward reunion there. And it was just like, having people like that.
We got married. We got to add this to our announcement. Sydney, we had a Steward alum get married. What was their name?
Chloe Staples.
Oh, yeah, never mind. Chloe is on the alumni board with me.
Exactly. Yeah, you guys, Chloe. So went to Chloe's wedding, and
that's cool.
got to see a bunch of friends there.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. All three of you, thank you so much for joining us. This was a lot of fun. Tell your acting friends what Natalie said. That is the nicest theater that she's ever acted in. Now, in all honesty, she said USC was a little bit nicer. Just a little bit,
honestly, just a tad. But also
it's Southern Cal, so like, come on.
Yeah, but also, if you guys are pursuing this, if you want to, Harry has my email. Please feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to hop on a call if you guys want help with anything. Like I want to be the person that I wish I had. So please feel free. Always happy to talk or continue this conversation.
This is what the Steward alumni community is all about. Right here, we're going to make actors and actresses and directors and producers. And before I let you go, if this project gets put into production that you're working on, is there space for me, the three of us, maybe just kind of do a cameo? I don't have to be paid.
I mean, I would hope so. That all depends on how I end up making it, but I will keep you in mind.
Okay, let us know. But yeah, maybe I could be a dad or a father figure in the movie. I'm pretty supportive of my two girls. So anyways, thank you, Natalie, for joining us. We know you've got some stuff to get back to there in LA, your busy schedule. But we will see you again soon, and we will let you know when the episode is coming out. Stay tuned.
Thank you guys so much. It was so nice talking to you, and good luck with everything.
It's so nice to meet you.
Thank you.
You too.